Good morning. Happy Thursday. I'm Hank Setala, the Sonic Shaman, and Melissa is still traveling, so I'm going solo today. I'm just going to take a moment to make it public on my Facebook. But today I'm going to talk about how to see the sacred. And I put a quote in the description that's from Neale Donald Waslsh. It's from his books, Conversations with God. And I'll just paraphrase it. You can read it for specifically in the description there. But it says that all moments are special. All people are special. There's no moment that's more or less golden than another. It's our ability to recognize the moments for what they are. And that's what today's talk is going to be about. It's going to be telling you a little bit about the tradition of the Katari tradition of cross cultural nature mysticism or shamanism, as well as seeing the sacred in your everyday life, not just in nature, but in every moment. And that's really hummingbird medicine, which we'll get to in a second. So let me go ahead and make this public. And if you've been enjoying these streams, please share them with someone that you think would get benefit out of them. And let's just open a little bit of space. Ahaya Pachamama, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui Pachamama. Iari Amaru, Wirka Amaru, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Ahaya Mama Uno, Ompui, 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 Mama Kocha, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Iari Antarango, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Ahaya, Wilka Sumak Mamakia, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Iari, Taiwantan Waira Kun, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Ahaya, Sawarkinte, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Iari, Inti Taita, Wilki Inti Taita, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Iari, Wilka Nina, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Hatan Kunta, Arpe, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Iari, Quichi Kuna, Ompui, Ompui, Ompui. Iari ito pakuna, the masculine spirits of your place of emergence. Ompui, ompui, ompui. Iari pakarina kuna, the feminine spirits of your place of emergence. Ompui, ompui, ompui. Haya wulkanuna cheska. Ompui, ompui, ompui. Yanapakuna. Ompui, ompui, ompui. Iari wurakocha. Ompui, ompui, ompui. Very good. Welcome, everyone. And because I'm the sonic shaman, I'll also start the day on the good note, and I don't have to worry about annoying Melissa with my noisemakers. And good morning, Kathy. Good morning. I see quite a few people watching. Feel free to say hello. And let's just jump right to it now that we've started on our good note, too. For those of you who haven't tuned in before, my name's Hank, and me and Melissa have been doing these streams every Thursday about the Katari tradition of cross cultural mysticism. And I use that word very specifically because in the modern day world, the word shaman is like this umbrella phrase. It actually refers to one particular tradition in the Siberian, and then anthropologists kind of lump every other native tradition under shamanism. And so today it's kind of like a catch-all phrase, but it rubs feathers the wrong way sometimes. So it's really mysticism. It's nature mysticism. Good morning, Tony. And the idea is, and that's one reason why I'm starting by kind of honoring the sacredness of where that word came from. We like to celebrate in this tradition differences and not relate away things. So like if you kind of look at, well, we don't have mountains like Peru, you're relating away already like the magic and magistry that we have in our own backyard. And when Zane first went to Peru, like the shamans actually, or the Pacos, they said, "Why are you here? Why don't you have shamans where you come from? Don't you have lakes and rivers and streams?" And one of the things they charged Zane with after he trained from them, and he's gone back and forth, and of course, but they said, teach people to see the sacredness in their own backyard. Teach people to be able to go out and commune with the nature that's right there. Because I'll tell you, when you're taking a breath in, that air you're breathing, how many times has that gone through the process with trees and being breathed by other people through generations, through other continents? Like we are all so connected. And if you want to start getting into like science and quantum physics and things like that, entanglement, and all these things, string theory, we are really all one, but we're also all separate. So recognizing that sacredness in yourself, recognizing that sacredness in other people, other places, in all places, and that's truly where that concept of namaste comes from. May the God in me greet the God in thee for the highest good. So, where shall we go today with sacredness? Let me see. Let me just say this little prayer. As we open the door to communication and healing, In the unity of the Holy Spirit, the great I am presence of the universe, we give thanks for we know that the word spoken and the experience received is full of your grace, truth, wisdom, love, and understanding of the highest. So I'm moved to tell you about a little story of when I hosted Zane for the first time here. And he gave me a list of all these places. And each one of these places that we would go to kind of correlate to a different place you would go to in Peru. And the very first place you go is like a church. And there's a place in Peru where this church was built on a sacred site. And they got the Huitlacocha egg, which is a doorstop now and all that. But like in my head, it's kind of like I'm not competing, but like I'm looking for something comparable. But how do you compare to that? How do you compare to a mountain like Machu Picchu? And that's the thing. My experience this first time going to scout one location changed everything for me. If you're local in North Ridgeville, there is a place called Holy Love Ministries, and he wanted a Catholic church because you need the divine masculine feminine. The church itself doesn't matter really. Like ideally the Catholic one because they have statues for both, but it's more about the place where people go to make those prayers builds a portal to the upper world or a doorway to the upper world, a waka, they call it. And I was scouting out different places and I saw this place, Holy Love Ministries, and I go out there. And at the time, I was very much a recovering Lutheran. And I was raised Lutheran and I have quite an interesting experience with the church. So I have a lot of spirituality, or had a lot of spirituality, but I didn't have a lot of religion. I had a sour taste in my mouth for a plethora of reasons. And so I go there and I'm kind of in my head thinking, yeah, I don't know about all this stuff. And that the lady's giving me a tour, and I told her, I'm like, hey, I'm scouting this place for like some group activities and things, and they're very open there. It's not technically Catholic. The lady's Catholic, but the church hasn't endorsed it, so it's open to all faiths, though it's very Catholic themed. So it's a very unique place if you ever go there. And the lady who founded it started seeing apparitions of Mary and got these messages, and just following the energy from what she was told, they built this amazing facility that's on solar and wind power and all this totally off the grid, completely supported without the support of the Catholic Church, just by people that have had their own experience there. And that's what this tradition and what Zane really offers when he works with you is he gives you these things that creates your own experience of whatever it is that you're talking about. So you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take Zane's word for it. You just had your own experience, you know? And once you've had your own experience, you cannot not know. Like in AA, we have the saying, like once a pickle or a cucumber becomes a pickle, it can never go back to being a cucumber, right? So as you start to do these things and go to events and start to have your own experience with the things that we're talking about, you start to build a relationship with the nature beings. You start to build a relationship with the earth. You start to build a relationship with yourself, like a real relationship, a real love affair with yourself as you start to really awaken to the fact that you are connected to all these things and start treating all these things as though it were you. Your whole world changes in terms of how you're interrelating with things and how you're in creationship, not relationship with things. I look at relationship as an acknowledgement of the duality. We're separate. And both are valid, by the way. And that there's not one that's or better or worse than the other. Creationship is a place where I'm acknowledging the me and you and working with myself to create more. So it's an acknowledgement of where we're the same. We're not the same, but the divinity is the same. Now I'm losing my train of thought. So going back to Holy Love, I was scouting out the location. I explained what I was doing, and the lady, she said, "Well, we have this relic." It was an aport. An aport is a thing that manifests like a teleported item that wasn't there before and then becomes there. It's really common in physical mediumship development circles where the person is spitting up gems. Those gems are considered aports, or something just appeared on the table. It's an aport. But they had a hair from Mother Mary. And in my head, when I heard that, I'm thinking, yeah, I don't. I have my. I'm a recovering Lutheran. I have a bad taste in my mouth. I'm only here because I'm scouting a place for my teacher, and so I really wasn't giving the place the reverence that it really was due to it. And they're in this little room. They have this plaque, not plaque, but it's like a little container with a glass in it, and the hair is affixed in there. And I go in thinking one thing, and I go in, and this energy came over me, and I went down, and I just wept. And I realized I don't know what exactly is happening, but there's something to this. And that was the beginning really of my journey healing myself from religion God, because there's religion gods, and then there's like the container that holds it all, which is really, that's what I look at in this tradition as Wiracocha. It is the container that holds everything for this playground of possibility. It holds a container for all religions, for all nature spirits, for all polarities and gradients and all those types of things. That's Wiracocha, the container that holds it all. But that started me on my journey of healing from like the religion God. But that taught me something even more, is that this place, which I was just going to because I was scouting location for my teacher for a class, because the sun came very alive for me, and I started to have a really cool, I don't know, I already knew the tradition was for me, but that was the beginning of me really, every place we went, like there was just a reverence to it that was amazing. And here, I had this experience here in my own backyard. I live in Westlake. That was in North Ridgeville. I didn't have to go to Peru. In fact, I can go revisit that spot anytime I want. How awesome is that? If you go and have initiations in Peru and you want to go relive it, it's a little bit of a trek to get out there, you know? So I think there's something to be said of doing this work and these initiations literally in your own backyard. I have relationships with all these spirits. So we went there. We went to, well, that first year we went out to Put Bay, and we took the ferry and went to the cave underneath the winery. I got permission from the owners to go underneath, and I have sole access to the cave, and it was just like this amazing experience. But any cave will do, you know. It's like the magic is in everything. The individualizations just have their own unique little personalities they get to know. So like that cave at Put Bay is going to be very different from Deerlick Cave, which we've also used for some of our exercises, which is just down in the Rocky River Reservation. So that's my little story of how I started to awaken up a little bit um, to really see the sacred and everything. And then through the process, and I had planned to have leaves with me, and I don't. So I might walk you through this anyway, if you have some bay leaves or if you want to come back on a replay. And we like one of the foundational practices that I'll talk about that we have is this little offering called Kintu. And it's just stream. Well, it doesn't have to be leaves. Like I saw Zane once when we went out on our first apprenticeship. We just got off the boat. We need to do this despacho to the sun, and he gets pine needles, and we use those. And just to give you an idea too about the magic of this work, and Melissa and I have talked about this. He does the despacho to the sun. He's holding it out, and he's calling for impi, impi, ompi, ompi, you know. And this was a snowstorm. Like the boat actually couldn't run because it had been snowing so bad. And in the middle of a snowstorm, um, the clouds part just enough where sunlight comes and illuminates the entire area that we were at. And it's like these little things like that that you're having these experiences, and I can't refute that. Like the sun came out, and I've seen many times where Zane's talked about that. He talks about the wind, and the wind comes up. It just happened recently when we had our retreat last year. Recently is a whole year ago. Isn't that great? Anyway, we have this practice. It's called Kintu, and it's a little offering. And I've seen Zane do it a couple different ways, and then I have my way and that I like to do it. But you get 3 leaves, and we do a lot of things in threes in this tradition because it is there's layers upon layers upon layers in meaning in Quechua. But it's symbolic of a lot of things because you have like your mind, your heart, and your body, which is like Yachai, Munai, Lankai. It's like your knowledge and wisdom, your combination of will and love, and the industrialness of the physical body. And then you have the 3 worlds, the Uhu Pacha, the Kai Pacha, the Hanak Pacha, you know. And so we have all these correlations. So you pick 3 leaves. Traditionally, it's coca leaf. That's a little illegal in the north here. So bay leaves work great, but really any 3 leaves. If you happen to plan to burn it, you want to make sure things aren't going to be toxic when you burn them, but you can go out and get leaves off of anything. But bay leaves are probably the second best morphic field around this type of thing. Morphic fields mean there's like a collective consciousness behind something. Like when you start to practice this tradition, you're not just learning something that somebody's teaching you. The way Zane teaches, he had a group called the Salke Munai Ayu, before he really had Wild Hearts Medicine Society. And that was a nonprofit dedicated to the preservation of the original medicine ways. And so when Zane teaches, a lot of the things he teaches is as close as he can get to the original. And that being the case, how many hundreds or thousands of years of collective intent and belief are behind you. You have the lineage behind you. In fact, when we open sacred space, we call in the lineage. And you're kind of standing on the bones of our ancestors, as they would say, and taking things to new heights. But you have this entire lineage, this unbroken, almost unbroken lineage going back that holds all this power and potency. So you get your three coca leaf, your three bay leaf or three leaves, and you just center yourself and you hold the leaves down by your navel, and the intention, I'm letting my body come into connection and resonance with the earth. And you just feel that pulse going back and forth as you get centered and as your body just comes into at one with Pachamama and the Uhupacha. And when you feel that shift, you bring it up to the heart, and you let your heart come into resonance with all the middle world, and you just send all that love out and feel that love and just this connection back and forth, and then up to the third eye, Yachai, and just letting your mind connect to the upper world. And I feel you, Zane. I feel you. I'll talk to you in a second. I just had to acknowledge that, though, because that's fun that I feel you. Anyway, you let the mind come into resonance with the upper world, and then you bring those down to your lips. And I've seen it go both ways. You either introduce yourself first or you call in the spirits first. But I like going, I am Hank Setala. I come from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's the English. And Quechua, it's Nokeni, William Henry Setala, Ayuapu, Kunamanta, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Because this is me. This is who I'm from. What you'll notice in my opening, we specifically kind of did a call out to the spirits of our places of emergence. They're very important nature spirits in this tradition. So you're basically announcing to all the spirits around, like, this is who I am. This is where I'm from. These are the spirits that know me the best and know where I'm going in my life and everything. And you breathe that like introduction to the leaves. And then what I like to do is I bring the Kintu to my Cusco, to my navel, and I imagine like offering my uniqueness up out of my crown as I raise the leaves up, and just imagine just flowering out my unique voice in this world, all that I am, the highest vibration, who I can be in this moment. And one of my favorite things that Zane will say is like, in that moment, just be authentic. If you're pissed off, be the highest vibration of pissed off you can be. You can't fool the spirit, so why try? But you just allow yourself to be the highest vibration of who you can be in that moment, and you offer it out. And when you feel that connection to the upper world respond from your uniqueness and what you're throwing out there, you start pulling those leaves down like a little column of light, bringing it down through you and breathing your prayers into like where you see yourself going. Not even seeing yourself going, like the vibration though of your intention of where you're going, and just breathe those into the leaves. And then you can just offer that to the environment that you are in, or combine it with a few other things. We have a couple other offerings, but I'll do that a different day when I'm actually prepared. We can go through a whole thing, but it's just a great way to center yourself, to put your vibration in those leaves, and just offer that even to the space that your house or your yard or everything, like you really just offer that as a little offering on the ground, so just as an energetic offering of who you are, and really connecting all those experiences that you've had to the nature place that you're at. Anyway, so let me go see comments now. Happy affiliate anniversary. I don't know what that's about. That's probably from Melissa. Christine says she loves my background. Magic Mike is in the house saying hello. And here's Zane, just joining now. How you doing? I'm doing great, Zane. Just talking a little bit about seeing the sacred in everything, especially each other. Because if we saw each other as sacred, how much different would we be treating each other? And just some emojis there. And Christine saying, oh, as you're speaking, I keep smelling flowers. Yummy. Yeah. And that's that right there. You've had your own experience already. I know Zane's just joining us, but one of the things that I was telling everyone about is when you start really getting into this and you start working with Zane or myself or whoever it is, it's really your own experience that is cultivating that connection and your knowings. Because I can teach you anything and it's intellectual. And like Zane would say, if it's just knowledge, it's unapplied, it's trivia. When you've had your own experience and it's a knowing, it completely changes how it is that you can work with it. Like I have the head knowledge. I used to work at a hardware store. I have the head knowledge to do a lot of home maintenance type of things. It doesn't mean I have the ability to easily. Like I don't have the knowingness. I have the intellectual trivia to do it, and do it usually to the point where my wife will take over and finish the project. But that you get kind of the idea of when something's mental, like how many things do you know probably how to do, but actually having that fluidity in it from having an experience with it and having the confidence because you've had an experience with it is a completely different thing. Let's see. And Tommy was saying, excuse me, I'm still just getting over a doozy of a cold. Tommy's saying, I have been led to do a kintu during my walks in the forest. Thank you for the reminder. We can use pine needles for leaves. Part of this tradition is you use what you have. I have raided a condiment counter at a fast food place for kintu ingredients when I've needed to. So you really do kind of, use what you have. And if you don't have anything, then you use your intention alone. And I've done the entire process of building the little packet that we build underneath our mesa spreads. I've done that entire thing just in my head. And for those of you who aren't aware, there is an apprenticeship coming up in April. It's going to be out of Goddess Elite. It's going to be 7 weekends and then like things in between. And I'll just stir up on the little ticker there. If you want to find out more information about that, you can check out my website. And if you feel called to this tradition, I can't emphasize enough, please reach out. There are ways, like we put a price on there because we need to pay bills and things like that. But we also have always had the belief that if someone feels truly called to this, we do whatever we can to work with them. So if that is you and you feel really called to do this tradition, please. Ooh, Zane says he has a few free moments if I want him to join us. This is so impromptu. One moment. I will send you a link, sir. So stay tuned. We got Zane coming on. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have my headphones, so I apologize. I might have to mute myself, depending. But Zane will be on in just a moment. You never know what's going to happen on the Thursday thing. And while Zane's joining us, the other thing, and I will put this in a banner, and I will put it in the comments in a moment. But on Zane's website, which is this long thing, that's what I'm going to put in the comments, there is a 2-week introduction to this tradition for like $47. And it is designed to be standalone, meaning it's not like you take this, now you have to take more. If it's the only thing you ever take, everything you learn stands on its own. If you want to learn more, great. But it's a great way to get a little, not just a taste of the tradition, but applicable things that you can change your life. Just the Saman Chakui, that is taught in this tradition, translates to Father's Ring. Just learning that practice and doing it every day will change your life. Guaranteed. Let's see. How do you know you're being called towards the tradition? I think it's just a knowing. Like for me, it was a series of events, and I didn't know that I was being called to the tradition yet. I had been gifted these little chumpy stones, which I don't have with me. I should always have a picture of them. Maybe I do have a picture. I'll look for it once Zane's on. But I wanted to find a teacher to teach me these stones, and Zane turned out to be the teacher. But to learn how to do the belting ceremony, he's like, that's part of an apprenticeship. So of course I got to learn to do this apprenticeship because I want to learn how to use these stones. And so I started hosting Zane for 1 and 2 weekends. And as soon as we were in the first circle that we've ever set up, and he led us through, and I chanted my first Pachamama, which is chanted like this: Pachamama. I knew in that moment, this is for me. And so I would recommend coming to an event. Like today, I'm going to do a healing clinic at Goddess Elite. You can stop in for healing, just not between 2 and 4. I got a online class. And get a little healing. Or if you're local, my ceremony and sound workshops, I have them on the 4th Friday and Saturday of the month. Friday is at 7 p.m. Saturday, I have one at 10 a.m. And though I focus on sound baths and some drumming and things, I do incorporate that more traditional opening with the chanting, and you just kind of get a taste of it. And I'll be doing information nights at Goddess Elite, little things like that. I have, if you go back on my YouTube channel, Sonic Shaman, I have a whole bunch of stuff if you want to just like binge watch a few things about the shamanism. So you just know. But if you're not local, then Zane's thing is the best. Now, Zane, I did send you a link. I don't see you in the studio yet. So Judy is saying, this is so exciting. I agree. I agree. I can't wait for this year's apprenticeship. It's going to be a lot of fun. I see Zane. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right. Here comes Zane.
Hey.
Welcome. What an unexpected surprise.
Yeah. Well, I had a little bit of free time and thought, hey, why don't I just join you if you had the space?
Yeah, I definitely got the space. Always for you, man. I like it's so hard to pin you down. It's like every once in a while he can be on a Thursday, and we know in advance. So like Zane, he usually stalks comments and kind of pooklyize us, which means plays with us a little bit. But I'd much rather be played on air. That's great.
So, what you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Feeling
Good,
good today.
good. I missed the beginning of the show. Not sure what all you did.
Well, I talked about seeing the sacred in everything and how
Mhm.
your teachers charged you with teach these. Well, they didn't say it this way. I'm adding it for dramatic effect, but
It's
teach
okay.
those people, those kids up at the north, to appreciate the sacredness in their own backyard.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, I mean, that's basically what they did say. They said, "Hey, go up there so people don't have to keep coming down here. It's a dangerous flight, it's dangerous travel, you know." And basically we're in this new age, this terra pacha we call it. And we all know we're in a new age. We all know things are drastically different than they were 20 years ago, which wasn't that long ago now that I'm getting older. 20 years flies by, but we all know we're in a different age. And in this age, we're really setting the groundwork for what things could happen in this world. And a lot of that has to do with developing something within us that allows us to show our true self, that allows us to get beyond the shame and the guilt and the fears and the insecurities, and just to put our true selves on our sleeve and to share what we've learned from our ancestors, to share what we've learned from our cultures, to share what we've learned from our technologies, and to bring it all together. We consider it a time of regathering. And, we're really hopeful about this time. We also know that there's a lot of danger at this time. Things don't have to go beautiful and everything like that because it's a what if prophecy. They've seen cycle. The people who created this prophecy had the wisdom to see cycles of time and to predict what happens with cycles of time. And they understood that every so often there becomes a world upheaval of some type. And in those moments, there are people who step up to the forefront, who step up to kind of lead the way. It's not about, though, leading the way with some kind of theology or some kind of philosophy or trying to get everyone on board with you. It's about leading the way with your energy field, with your spiritual qualities. And when you are so crystal clear as to who you are and you can wear your mistakes on your sleeve. I know a lot of people don't like that word mistakes, but we Pacos love it because that's the thing that keeps us human. That's the thing that makes it all worthwhile. If we're just always meditating on a mountain and thinking of ourselves as this pristine, pious thing, we cut ourselves off from that humanity. We cut ourselves off from being able to change the world, and we instead decide to live in a fantasy. Though a fantasy is a very beautiful thing and it can help transform this world, if all we do is dream, we'll never actually transform the world. We also have to develop the character inside of us and the power, the personal power to follow our dreams. But personal power is way more than that. It's also the ability to know when to follow what dream. Because just because you have a dream doesn't mean that it's the right time for it to be fulfilled. Doesn't mean that you have the cart pie or the personal power to fulfill it right now. So part of truly getting into that essence of who you are is to know the measure of your power and when it's right to try to accomplish something and when it's better to let that sit for a while, let that seed germinate a little more because it's not quite ready to burst forth into this world. And
sometimes
that's
you
what
got to
I'm
prep the
really excited
soil.
about.
Yeah, I said sometimes you got to prep the soil before you can plant the seed too.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
your
And
work and
and
chill
that's
with.
the stuff that people don't always understand is that what it takes to irrigate that, which is what karpai means in our tradition. Karpai means to irrigate. So what it takes to irrigate that is actually to look at those sides of ourselves that aren't comfortable to see, to become accustomed to diving into uncomfortable parts of ourselves, bringing them to the surface, and then offering them as a great gift. And as we learn to offer them as a great gift, understanding that it's helping us grow to experience it, but also understanding that nothing is just personal. Everything is global and universal. That's the view of the medicine person, that we can take even our ills, even our mistakes, and we can use it in our ceremonies and stuff to help alleviate that type of vibration from the whole human species, so that we all are elevating. We offer our mistakes, we offer our misdeeds as a healing balm for the world, because we are able to experience it, because we are able to sit with it, and we are able to learn what to do with it.
Very good. So if anyone has questions or comments, we have Zane on, who better to ask or answer your questions.
Oh, you do a great job.
I think so. Usually.
Yeah, you do a great job. I'm very proud of you.
My number one thing is, if I don't know, I tell people I don't know, and then I ask you usually, or the appropriate mentor of choice.
Yeah, that's exactly what to do, you know. And I heard you talking a little bit about the Andean, you know, the tradition and how it's moved throughout the years. So it's a living tradition.
Yeah.
And that means that it transforms with environment, the environment you live in. And like you were talking about, finding the sacredness in that environment that you live in. And when you do that, you start to form a whole new branch of the tradition itself.
I'm going to put myself on mute for a moment. The trash person is here.
Well, it's good for them to pick up, you know, that's part of it. It's about releasing huge dumps of energy as fertilizer. And the trash men are just coming by to remind us of that.
It was really loud. It's still going to be really loud in another second here, but it's very timely. You got to take the trash out to make room for new light coming in.
Exactly. You know, a lot of people, they either get, if we look at our souls as a garden, they either get preoccupied with picking the weeds, and that's all they do, or they get preoccupied with just getting enough light and all the other elements, but they never actually plant a seed to grow. So we need to fertilize those gardens. We need to pick the weeds, but we have to know when it's time to quit picking on ourselves and to start developing ourselves and start shining our light.
One thing too, like kind of along those same lines, as we have so many possibilities and things, how you were saying, you have to like kind of look at it as now the time. We might have an inspiration and we could legitimately do 10 different things, but you only have so much energy, you only have so much RAM. And like to know which one is going to create the most, and then having the stamina to see one thing through till completion, because we tend to jump. Is there anything from the tradition that kind of helps people stay focused on a single thing?
Sure.
And not jump around as much?
Absolutely. So we were all born with two very special powers, and they're unique to humanity. They're not unique as in the way that no other creature has them, but no other creature seems to have them to the capacity we do. And that's imagination and emotion. And with our imaginations and with our feelings, we can create emotional states of being. And those emotional states of being dictate who we are and what we're capable of in that moment. And many of us, we you know, we have a lot of wounds. All of us have a lot of wounds from our early childhood. And when we were wounded, you know, that younger version of ourself didn't know the best way to handle that wounding. So it created a type of soul contract, complete with behaviors and everything else, that kept it safe at that moment. It was the right action for you at that moment. But as we get older and we mature, we outgrow some of those things. But that's how emotional states of being are created. When we are able to go in and we are able to sit with our anger, to sit with our fear, to sit with our greed, our envy, our jealousy, when we're able to experience that and know that it's us and be okay with that, and we start to be able to reorganize it. And what that ends up doing is it takes the power off of the reactionary mind, which is in the subconscious and the unconscious self. It takes the power away from it and it brings it back into more of the conscious mind. And then we can start to actually manufacture emotional states of being. So we can manufacture anger, even if we're not angry, if anger is something that we need at that moment to have enough power to do something. We can manufacture love. I mean, that's what this whole tradition's about. That's what really the entire thing is about, is learning how tune our vibration to Munai and to greater Munai. And as we do that, we are able to produce amazing effects in this reality. But we have to first realize that love is a power we wield, not not the romantic idea of love as it's something that almost is an outside entity that comes down upon you and you're just hopeless to it. And I can't help it. I'm in love, No, love for the Andes is a very dry thing. It's something you choose, and you choose it every day. You make that choice every day, no matter what the situation is. And as you continue to develop love and passion and all of your emotions, because we don't want to throw any of them out. Pachamama didn't make no junk. There is no junk. An emotion like sadness is not junk. An emotion like anger is not junk. In fact, it's something that we have to offer as a medicine when we learn to tame it. That's the whole thing, is taming it and then learning to manufacture emotional states of being when we need to, in the moment where they're most where they're most needed. So, we might be getting burnt out on a project we're doing. Well, we might need to manufacture some of that passion so that we can get it done. And that passion, it feels a whole lot like anger. It has a vibration sort of similar to anger too, because it's that lower energy. And that's how we drive ourselves. And if we learn to drive ourselves that way, if we learn how to create emotional states of being and to be the master of them, instead of creating emotional states of being that are default programs that we fall into and react to stimuli, we can actually respond to stimuli with these emotions, with these states of being. And each one has different gifts that it offers us.
Now, last week I played a 38-minute video Zane had given us that was pre-recorded, and you talked a bit about emotions and how feelings, you'll cycle through feelings. You get cut off and you might be angry for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. When you're angry for an hour, for hours, for a day, that's a trigger. And that has deeper roots. Could you talk a little bit more? Because I encourage everybody to go watch last week's stream because the whole presentation was amazing. But on this particular point, since it's relevant, what do people do if they find themselves being in those feelings for hours? What would be the first step into kind of distilling down what that's really about to unpack it?
Not trying to shift it. The first step is not viewing it as wrong, not trying to shift it, not saying, oh, I'm so dumb, and giving yourself all kinds of bad self-talk. What you want to do is observe it. You want to become an observer of yourself going through it. And if you can start to observe yourself going through it and quit falling unconscious. See, we fall into the unconscious and the subconscious. When an imprint first gets triggered, which an imprint is mental emotional data that is entangled with a trauma that is in our past. And when one of those things get triggered in us, the first thing that it does, it's like an app on your phone, but imagine you have to hit it 3 times to fully launch it. The first time it gets tapped, it creates stress. It creates a feeling of stress and how you deal with stress. And then the second time, if you don't get rid of the stimuli by then, it gets tapped again. And we start to go into the classic defense mechanisms, projection, repression, all of the classic defense mechanisms. Then if it gets tapped a third time, on that second tap, we're in the subconscious. We're in the emotional state of it. That first tap, when the stress sets in, we're in the mental state of it. Second tap, we're in the emotional state of it. And on the third tap, we fall into the unconscious state of it, that from the subconscious to the unconscious. And that's when these emotional states of being that we created in our past to deal with trauma pop up, and they start to take the lead. Because with our power of imagination and our power of emotion, we can create new life forms. We can create entities, and we create them in our psyche to protect parts of our psyche. They're like guardians at the gates. And when we get tapped so many times on an imprint, that guardian comes forward, possesses our body. That's why we feel unconscious or feel like we're off to the side and just watching it, possesses our body and initiates a whole reactionary state that has been programmed by your younger self. So the real key there is not to go unconscious. So start to breathe in through the emotion, through the feeling, through the stress, whatever it is you're feeling. Start to breathe in through it and make it part of yourself, not something you're trying to shift or anything else. Understand that locked up in it is your life force energy that you could use to make a different choice in how to respond to the stimuli. But first you have to unlock it. So breathing in through it, that's a beautiful way to start unlocking it. Sit with it. Don't try to shift it. And eventually you start to become aware of yourself more and more when you fall into those states of being. It's not something you do in one weekend and then you're perfectly, okay, and never have to deal with it again. This takes time, but you're worth it, right? I mean, that's personal development. That's spiritual development. It takes time. You're worth it. Another thing I wanted to say is that unconscious level where that entity was created as a guardian, even though that's the inner world, even though that's deep in the earth, we would see it deep in our inner world. The truth of the matter is that when we go unconscious, we are about to bridge the gap between the spiritual and the material world, because there's a portal there that goes straight into the spiritual world. So that's actually a unconscious response, but is a spiritually programmed response. Those emotions that take over you can be seen as entities, but they're not external entities. They're entities you created as guardians to protect wounded parts of yourself. They were the best you could come up with at the time you were traumatized to deal with that trauma and to keep yourself safe from future trauma. So you can't be mad at yourself for using them. What you can do is you can start to become more and more aware of them. And as you become more and more aware of them, you can start to shift the script. You can start to shift the way they behave, the way they act. Of course, if you join the apprenticeship, we get more into that with the Muki and the Anchanchu and some nature spirits that help us do that work, to help us to start learning to do that. And then we also work with the 7 powers of the unconscious, which is very powerful. That's where we're directly engaging anger and fear and jealousy and all those things, and learning how to produce within ourselves the medicine that is needed to befriend them and to calm them and to reorganize their energies so that we can apply all of that massive amount of energy that was stored up in that into our hopes and dreams, for fertilizer for our hopes and dreams.
Very good. Thank you. That was an amazing power-packed response. And if you have any questions or comments on anything that we have mentioned so far, please take a moment, ask them now. We still got a couple minutes at least. And I think there was a comment way long ago when the trash was still coming. Judy was just commenting that she loves that point about the seed not being ready yet until the time is ready to burst forth. Even a brilliant idea has the appropriate time to be born.
Yeah, and we can see it as everything's in the eternal moment, and it we can almost see it as parallel universes. Yeah, that we are inside of one moment, and at different times, different moment or different things can emerge from that moment, different possibilities. We don't always have all the possibilities to create just anything we want to create. Sometimes we have to say, hey, that's not right for that right now. And we all know that, right? We've all had a brilliant idea, ran out, developed it, launched it, and knew at the moment that it was the wrong time, knew that it just wasn't going to hit where we wanted it to hit.
I can relate to that. a really big one. And the other thing of it is, like, if you have that inspiration now, the question might be, it's not time now, but is there anything I need to do now to prepare the soil for later? So maybe it's like you do something a little bit on it, and then you kind of put it to side. Like there's some of my projects that they kind of seem to come in cycles. And every once in a while I'll work on it and like, all right, well, the energy's done for that now. And it usually is when I get another piece, like I'm writing this one book and it's like, I fizzle out, and then all of a sudden, like 6 months later, there's like a new awareness that changes my point of view about what I was writing about, and it becomes a whole nother thing. And it's almost like I was just waiting to have that experience to be able to write that next piece.
Yeah, I've been writing this second book of mine for over 15 or 16 years now. because of that. It just wasn't ready yet. It just, and now it's nearing completion. I'm really excited for it. But yeah,
Yay.
yeah, and that's how it is with creativity. Creativity is a flow, and a flow has an ebb and a flow. It's not just all whoosh and you get it done because you're being pushed like a train. That's one of the things that I've really been trying to help people understand lately, is that the spirit doesn't scream at you. The spirit doesn't yell at you. Your intuition, your higher self plays a back seat. It lets you fill the room with the things that you think are important, and then it applies itself to those things. So the whole thing is, we have to get very clear with ourselves to open up enough space to hear its quiet voice. In the Christian tradition, is called that still quiet voice. It's called that for a reason, because the spirit it's very still, it's very quiet. It's not going to push you into something you don't want to do. It's going to kind of just hint at you. And it's like a romance affair. You have to actually befriend your spirit. You have to know it. You have to learn to become one with it, and how to sit with it, so that you can receive that true wisdom. Because there's all kinds of stuff within us, our imprints especially, that color our intuition, because our intuition comes through the imprint first before it comes to our conscious understanding.
I take that as a quite timely validation. I just had an inspiration today to treat one of my times with spirit like a date. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, all right, well, that's going to be interesting. How's that going to look? So I'm putting some thought into this, because I don't know how it's going to look yet, but it was a very clear knowing this morning. And now you're talking about it. I'm just like, wow, what great validation. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, that's exactly what it is. It is a date. And, people think, oh, you receive an initiation or something, and they're just there. Well, for a little while, especially in our tradition, there's something called being a tusak. And that's when you're learning. And when you first receive your initiations and you're first learning, the spirits help you out based on your teacher's relationship with them. You're under your teacher's power. So what you're really trying to do there then is not understand in an intellectual way everything that's happening, but to really understand in an emotional and energetic way what you're doing. And you're just copying the master. You just follow the master and you perform the same actions, and you'll get the same results without anything else, just by performing those actions. Because that's a period of time that you're in where you're a tusak to your master. Then there comes a period of time where you're free from your master's power, and you have to start developing those relationships yourself. And now you can't just assume that Apu Asangante is going to come and help out. You have to give something. You have to show that you really understood and learned from your teacher during that easy period of time what you needed to do, just by following the steps, even if you didn't understand them. Because our tradition is not a tradition of understandings. It's a tradition of feeling. It's not about mental structures. It's about experience. And that's what's important in our tradition. It's not, we have all kinds of little mind candies, mental things that really help us as Westerners, but they don't need that down there. They don't need all that stuff. They're not a questioning culture. That's why you'll get that's one of the reasons why you get so much conflicting information sometimes coming from different teachers of the tradition. The other one is it's based on your experience in the end. So you are your own pope. In the end, once you've learned the art, and that's what it is, it's a spiritual art. It doesn't matter what religion you are. Once you learn the art, you're your own pope. So you get to dictate what that art means and how it works for you. But first, you have to put the time into learning it. And that's part of the lineage, too. They look for us to do certain things. It's like the lineage is there for us, but it's behind password protected areas of the spiritual dimension. Yes, everyone can tap into Asangante's energy, but only a few people can tap into Asangante's energy as a Paco and can know how to relate and how to communicate with that mountain to bring forth a function, and it is like dating, because you have to learn the likes and dislikes of your spirit. If it's a nature spirit, what does it like? Well, one of the ways you get to find that out is to look what's surrounding that nature spirit. Look at what the people are like, because the people are a reflection of the nature. So if the people in the town love to party and all kinds of other stuff, then you pretty much understand that that's part of the personality of that nature spirit. It likes to party, it likes to drink, so that then, and you can approach it that way. Or maybe the people are really quarrelsome. Maybe you can, maybe you would be like, well, I don't know why anyone would want to work with a quarrelsome mountain. Well, maybe somebody is really weak in their personal power and they don't know how to stand up for themselves, and they might need to go to a mountain or to a nature area where now my trash man's going by.
I got somebody just banging randomly on the door here. So like talking about the party mountains. I don't know.
Yeah. So you might say, hey, why would somebody want to deal with a spirit that is warlike or has that anger or something like that? Well, the reason why is maybe you can't express that, and any emotion you can't express is a block, because we should have a full range of emotions. We should be able to feel every emotion, and we should be able to move and shift out of every emotion, usually within 20 minutes to an hour. That's a normal state when it's not triggering something deeper. And when it is triggering something deeper, all right, now you're going to get to know something about yourself. You're going to get to learn something that you've been hiding from yourself for years. And that's cool.
Yeah, this is cool. I have to say that I've gotten to know myself really well over the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
In a good way. Can't post comments. Oh, never mind. I just thought it was an error message, but it was just a message. But if you all have questions or comments, please let us know. This has been a wonderful surprise having you on and talking a little bit more in depth about some of these things.
Yeah, well, I had the day free, or at least the morning free, and then when I tuned in, I saw you were alone, and I thought, well, maybe you're lonely.
Yeah, Melissa is still at Tucson for the gym show, and though she probably could have made it, it's just an undue.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah,
but I've been dipping my toes back into doing more live streams in general. So it's like, yeah, this is just another experience of soloing it. I streamed yesterday. I streamed a couple times yesterday. It was good.
Cool.
So, back in the saddle again.
Absolutely.
Well, let's see. If people are only on for this one moment, because maybe some of them are, and they're never going to see you again or me again, because they'll say those guys were crazy. I don't want to watch that. If you could only impart one thing, what would that one thing be? A Nike Kawaii. That reminds me of this. I probably won't remember the whole story about it, but there's a village, and this one village person comes back and they're terrified, and they're like, oh my gosh, there was this thing out there, and it was like a tree that moved. And another villager goes out and comes back. It's like, no, it was terrible, and it was like the snake that just swung around. And then the wise men finally went out and said, it's an elephant. And so the idea is anything, even the word itself, is a limitation. And yes. It just kind of reminds me of that. And then I like writing God is and then putting ... Anything you put after that is a limitation. Even saying God is ... because it's that which cannot be named or known.
Yeah. And what I would rather do than fill space with words was just to give energy. And then anyone who picks up on that energy and it's right for them, they'll know in their heart if it's right for them. And then they can reach out to you and see about the apprenticeship, or I have the 2-week induction into the tradition coming up. And I know you have some workshops as well,
Yeah, and I already put this in the comments, but for Zane's 2 week thing, which is just $47, that is the link, and it's in the comments, so you don't have to write that down. But if you had to, I guess you could freeze this frame and write it and type it all out. And then on my site, if you go to hanksetala.com, even /events, it will show you all my events coming up, especially the ceremony and sound or the shadow work journey circle. Both of those are heavily entwined with this tradition. So though we have a little bit of sound healing because that's my jam, pun intended. We also have a lot of the Peruvian tradition interwoven.
Absolutely, yeah. I just wanted to say with that course that I'm offering, I don't want people to think, oh, this is just some kind of introductory offer to get me into something deeper. It is to give you a taste of the tradition, but my whole intent behind offering it is not to whet your morsel and so that you want to do more. It's more to give you real value. I'm not just, I want to give you some tools that come from the tradition that I think every human can use to improve their life. And I think that just by using those tools and doing these practices and getting the experiences you get from them, and then playing with your life with these tools or seeing them as toys and playing with the rest of your life, even if you never take another course from me, I guarantee you what I'll share with you will build a solid foundation to support your spirituality, whatever direction it goes.
Very good. And I kind of alluded to that right before you came on. I talked about that 2 week program, and it's like it stands on its own. Is the wording that I use. Like what you learn will stand on its own. And even if from this tradition you only took away the saman chakwi, that by itself could change your life.
Absolutely.
And I kind of describe it like it's like this one energy practice. And it's for like the lighter hoocha, if you will. But I use the analogy of the Grand Canyon. Even the Grand Canyon, from that little stream, look at what was created. So over time, even like a technique that like the Saman Chukui can really have huge effects on carving out, the path of the soul.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something that allows us to, to put it in scientific terms, it allows us to drop down into theta or into alpha and theta states. And when we're in alpha and theta states, we're able to be more of our authentic self, more of the big me instead of the small me. And as we're more of that big me can start to look at the situation. So that one technique you were talking about there, it can help you become an observer when things are happening. So when you're in the middle of being triggered, you can actually learn these things. They're like an energetic yoga. They're internal. And you don't have to take 10 minutes out and count backwards from 20 or anything like that. You can actually engage in them. Carl Jung and Jungian psychology would call it active imagination, but it could be, you could consider it the psychological power of yourself. It's the same power that creates psychosomatic health. We hear about psychosomatic illness. Well, the same mechanism creates psychosomatic health and can change everything about our life. We just have to learn how to engage with it.
On that note too, I saw a meme about glimmers, which are the opposite of triggers. So they're little things that can create positive effects in your life, just like a trigger. So kind of, I don't know, it came to mind to share that.
Well, sure. I mean, and like NLP and people who get way into NLP, you can set up an anchor. It might be a rubber band around your wrist, and then every time you're getting upset or you're feeling yourself go reactionary, you can snap that rubber band or something else. If you feel like you're not paying attention to someone talking to you, whatever change you're trying to make, you can use whatever that anchor is. Sometimes an anchor is just like placing your fingers like this.
I would always use like the knuckles of the fingers. There's a one technique in NLP, anchor collapsing, where you set like 4 positive anchors, a bundle anchor, if you will, a negative anchor and a bailout anchor, and you use it to collapse like super big traumas in someone's past. So like NLP is a whole cool little world if you use it for healing. It's also used for very aggressive sales tactics. So there's, it's a great example of how we all have tools, and there's positive and negative ways that same tool can be used. So it's always to be done with a kind of integrity and mindfulness.
Well, that's why it's so important to find out who you really are, and who you really are outside of your environment, outside of the indoctrination of your culture, outside of the the indoctrination of your family to really find out who you are inside. And when you find out who you are, you start to understand what your values are. And that's one of the most important things about manifesting something. Most people out there are trying to manifest a dream that's not their dream, but they think it's the dream they're supposed to go for. Oh, I think I'm supposed to be a successful business person. Oh, I think I'm supposed to be a millionaire. And they have no, they have no, well, what's the right word? No real idea of what that takes. And they would never do the steps it would take to be that. So they'll never manifest that dream, because it's not right for them, because it's outside of their values. It's outside of their true intrinsic self. But first you have to learn how to find your intrinsic self. And the only way to do that is to value the internal world more than external wealth and more than how other people see you. And, that you have to take that kind of stance in life to start to dive into who you really are. And then you can start to dream real dreams. Maybe you thought you wanted to be rich, but all you really want is some extra time. I know so many people who were fighting the corporate ladder and just trying to get to the top of it because they thought once I get there, I get so much money that I'll have more time. They thought that money was time, and that it made it so that you didn't have to do as much. And they didn't understand the responsibilities of those jobs. When the glamour wore off, they now have this high paying job that they're contracted into, and it's taking every moment of their time, every bit of their energy. Even when they're not working, they're constantly thinking about it. It's not creating the change they wanted to manifest in their life, because being a millionaire isn't what they wanted. What they really wanted was to enjoy life more. And they thought that to enjoy life, the cultural norm is you have to be rich.
Yeah, that is our cultural training. And then corporate efficiency. My friend Pram, who's a professor at Baldwin Wallace, would say the definition of corporate efficiency is how do I get the most out of someone and put the least into them? And so we're trained to put way more out than we receive and like burn out and work so hard to go back to what we were doing before we worked hard, which is enjoying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a trick, we've been tricked. Happened a long time ago, but we were tricked out of our time. We were tricked out of our joy. If you really look at the peasants of medieval Europe, you'll find out that most of them lived okay and worked very little. And then there came these I can't remember his first name, but basically it was the same philosophy that Alexander Hamilton used in our country. And it was the idea that if we create a new limitation that all other things, even if they're more abundant, is based on, such as a token economy, and we control that token economy, then we can prod a person to do more than what they would naturally, because if you have a farm you can go back to and it's producing well enough for you to survive, once people start piling extra work on you you don't want to do, what do? You walk away and go back to your farm. Yeah. So it was all about getting people to move away from the farmlands into the cities. It was a big thing, and basing your quality of morality on the amount of money you're able to accumulate.
I think we should have a whole separate stream just on this. As I also have a cool story about the Mexican fisherman as about the rat race, but I'm going to save it because we're past an hour now.
All right,
so
man.
Going through these final comments. First, we had Christine saying, "You're both birthing books, yay!" And then Judy was just commenting on the moment of energy transmission that you did and how powerful it was. My cousin Anna, thank you so much. Great energy this morning. And Christine saying that it's a really powerful morning coffee talk. Thank you both so much, and you're very welcome. And I opened with sacred space, so I'm just going to thank the spirits, and then we will depart. And thank you, Kawaiki, to all of you for showing up and being present. We've had a lot of people the entire time I've been streaming, so I really appreciate everybody showing up. That's half the battle. Show up for your own experience. Yari Pachamama, Nike, 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 Amarukuna, Nike, Nike, Nike. Yari, Wurka, Mama Unu, Nike, Kawaiki. Wurka Sumak Mama Kia, Nike. Mama Kocha, Nike, Atrango, Nike. Ahaya, Taiwantan Waira Kuna, Nike, Nike, Nike. Saurakinte, Nike, Nike, Nike. Ahaya, inti taita, work inti taita, Nike, iari kuntar, Nike. Ahaya, quichi kuna, and Nike. Iari pakarina kuna, and Nike, ito pakuna, and Nike. Welka nuna chaska, and Nike. Iari warkocha, Nike. Harpi chai sonkolai.
Don Hank Setala, a Nike, Erpi sa chai, son conchai, munaicha, sopaiki.
Nike kawaiki, welka nuna wakuchai, welka nuna ayu, and Nike. All right. Till next time, everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.